William Hartnell had played the role of the Doctor for 3 years. He was starting to grow a little bit tired and he had ongoing health issues. He asked the BBC for some more time off, as back in the day there was a lot of demand for episodes every year, with about 40 to 50 of them coming out each season. But the BBC had different plans. By 1966, they were intent on recasting the role of the Doctor. It was one of Cindy Newman's most difficult decisions. He informed Hartnell about the recasting of the role, what he made a national icon by facing Daleks, Zarbi, angry Aztecs, and also making friends with many different companions across space and time, usually in a TV program. Sometimes a character can be recast and there wouldn't be any sort of explanation to why they've been recast on screen. However, the recast would be written into the narrative of Doctor Who, and ultimately is one of the reasons why the show has lasted for over 50 years, and this new idea by the BBC went on to become Regeneration, where the Doctor would have the ability to transform his outside appearance, allowing the new actor to take over the main role. Viewers would have been shocked in the closing moments of the 10th Planet. Just for a moment, imagine if you were back in 1966 and you were witnessing the transformation of William Hartnell to Patrick Troughton. You would be wondering what the hell was going on. Overall, the regeneration idea was a success. In the following week, The Power of the Daleks, Patrick Troughton's first full story, which is no longer in the archive sadly, was broadcast, and I suppose at the time it would have felt like a different show with a new and more energetic lead actor following in the footsteps of a more mature and established actor. Having said that, the transition would have been easy with the return of the Daleks in Patrick Troughton's first story, seeing as Daleks were really popular during the mid-1960s. As the Troughton era progressed, more new companions arrived and more departed to make Troughton's Doctor more separate to Hartnell's. In addition, Troughton's Doctor only encountered the Daleks in 2 stories, whereas Hartnell encountered them in 4. The Cybermen arguably were the main baddies of the Second Doctor's era. As well as that, Yeti and Ice Warriors were introduced during his time. Alas, by 1969, the show might have ended. Viewing figures were starting to go downhill. Troughton, Fraser Hines, who played Jamie, and Wendy Padbury, who played Zoe, were intending to leave the show by the end of its 6th season. In Troughton's finale, viewers learnt of the Doctor's true origins as his speeches to Time Lords were formally introduced. They forced him to change because of his tampering with the affairs of different planets across space and time. The last regular appearance of the Second Doctor saw him spinning through a black screen, screaming, "No!" Bear in mind, this could have been the last ever seen in Doctor Who, but, of course, as we all know, it wasn't. Could you imagine if it was, though? it would have been a real shame as this scene is left open-ended. At the beginning of the 1970s, the Doctor re-emerged from the TARDIS, stranded on Earth, but in a new body which was in the form of Jon Pertwee, and it was in colour too. Now, the Third Doctor's era was really different from the First and Second Doctor's era, as a lot of it was based on present-day Earth, as his Doctor couldn't fly his TARDIS anymore. He was at the time the longest serving Doctor, lasting 5 years in the part. He faced more Daleks, Silurians, Autons, She-Devils, and the most evil of all, the Master. It was intended by the scriptwriters that in Jon Pertwee's final story, the Doctor and the Master would have formed some sort of alliance to defeat a greater foe, with the Master sacrificing his life for the Doctor. It would have been revealed in this story that the two were actually brothers as well. Unfortunately, due to the untimely death of Roger Delgado, the script known as The Final Game was scrapped. Instead, it was replaced by Planet of the Spiders, which saw the Doctor suffer radiation poisoning on the planet Metabilis 3 before returning to Earth and regenerating again. It was the first actual regeneration scene seen since the 10th Planet, nearly 10 years earlier. Tom Baker was now the Doctor. He lasted for 7 years, making him the longest serving Doctor to date. He battled more Cybermen, Siren Service robots, Sontarans, Morbius, a Decayed Master, the Black Guardian, and the evil creator of the Daleks, Davros. His Doctor introduced more audience to the show than ever before, making his era the most popular of the classic series. By 1981, he intended to leave. Audiences would not have been aware of the idea of regeneration, as many of them would have been new to the show because of Tom Baker's popularity. Plus, Tom Baker lasted such a long time in the role, many people would have been really used to him, and many people would have just seen him as the only Doctor, not being aware that 3 Doctors preceded him. Viewers would have been shocked to see Tom Baker regenerate into Peter Davison at the end of season 18's finale, Legopolis. Also in the story, we see a mysterious figure known as the Watcher, which is actually an incarnation of the Doctor in between the 4th and 5th incarnation, hence why he appears in the middle of the regeneration scene from Tom Baker to Peter Davison. Davison lasted for 3 years after being advised by his favourite Doctor, Patrick Troughton, to stay that long. He is really heroic in his final story, saving the girl instead of himself, leading him to change yet again. At the time, it was the most violent regeneration, and is one of the most famous, as the 5th Doctor sees images of all of his companions, Tegan, Nyssa, Turlough, Chameleon, and Adric, before the horrific sight of the Master, played by Anthony Ainley, shouting, "Die, Doctor." He changed into Colin Baker, who was the first Doctor to speak straight after regeneration. His first line was, "You was expecting someone else." His Doctor got off to a tough start though, with audiences, because he strangled the companion in his first story. Of course, that was only an effect of the regeneration. The next regeneration didn't really feature Colin Baker, as he refused to take part after being dismissed by the BBC. So Sylvester McCoy donned a wig to impersonate poor Colin before we see McCoy's actual appearance as the 7th Doctor. It's just too bad that his first story wasn't even that good. In 1996, the movie saw Sylvester McCoy regenerate into Paul McGann on an operating table in San Francisco after being shot by a gang and then being tampered with by medics who were trying to revive him, but because of the Doctor's complex anatomy, he died before regenerating. The effects of this regeneration led to McGann's Doctor not even knowing who he was. In the midisode, The Night of the Doctor, released in 2013, viewers finally got to see how McGann regenerated. After being killed on a spaceship, he was briefly brought back to life by the Sisterhood of Karn and had to drink an elixir before changing yet again. However, through guilt of all the lives he had cost, he chose not to be the Doctor anymore. He changed into John Hurt, who appears as a young man explaining that he is the Doctor no more. John Hurt's Doctor doesn't fit into the numbered category of the Doctor. Instead, he is known now by fan circles as the War Doctor. This Doctor fought in the last Great Time War on his home planet, the planet Gallifrey, against the Daleks. This Doctor is implied to have a lot of blood on his hands for killing millions of innocent lives. In the Day of the Doctor, his timeline is temporarily changed by two future incarnations of the Doctor in the form of David Tennant and Matt Smith. Together, all 13 Doctors save Gallifrey by freezing it in a pocket universe using their TARDISes. However, due to the timeline changing so much, he would not remember the events that took place in the alternate reality. Thus, he still thinks that he still killed millions of lives and that he destroyed his own people. In his TARDIS begins to regenerate into the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. His Doctor was reconciled by the Time Lord by meeting Rose Tyler in 2005. In the parting of the ways, she absorbs the time vortex and ends up destroying the last army of Daleks. The Doctor then absorbs the energy from her, taking her back into the TARDIS and then changing again, as Christopher Eccleston did not want to stay on for more than one series, fearing that he'd be typecast. David Tennant became the 10th Doctor, and he is the second longest serving after Tom Baker. His time on the show made him an international star. His Doctor also made the show become recognised all over the world. In the 2008 episode A Stone on Earth, he begins to regenerate after being shot by a Dalek, which brought media attention to the show for the following week, as many thought that David Tennant was actually leaving. By the next episode, the Doctor was still Tennant, after the 10th Doctor used his hand, which was in a jar, to not change his appearance. However, this was still a regeneration used up. By 2010, it was ultimately time to change again, and this time he became even younger. Matt Smith was the youngest ever actor to play the Doctor. The 11th Doctor lasted nearly 4 years in the role, continuing to bring the show to worldwide recognition. He was the star of the show's milestone 50th anniversary special, before hanging up his boots in the 2013 Christmas special, The Time of the Doctor. In this story, it is revealed that Matt Smith is actually the 13th and final incarnation of the Doctor, as Time Lords can only regenerate 12 times. But because Gallifrey had been saved, the Time Lords opened cracks in the universe and sent a new set of regenerations to the Doctor in reward for saving Gallifrey. It was the most powerful regeneration to date, blowing up an entire fleet of Dalek spaceships and destroying most of the town of Christmas on the planet Trenzalore. It also changed the timeline, which would have seen the Doctor actually die on Trenzalore. In the TARDIS, the Doctor's companion Clara watches as the 11th Doctor regenerates into the much older 12th Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi, with him explaining that he doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS. And that's it. There we are. All of the Doctor's regenerations through the history of Doctor Who. It is evident that by the amount of times the actor has changed, the show has still kept on going. Hence that's why the show has lasted for over 50 years, because it can still be fresh every few years with a new actor taking over as a titular Time Lord. Now with a new set of regenerations, the show has the potential to last yet another 50 years. Thank you very much for watching.